Welcome back to the hood. This is Chillin the Green Boss with Specks, Thompson, and The View. And like always, my co-host The View just never came back to the show. And this show, I thought he was gonna make it, but he had something to do. Jason gave him a master morpher to go help out the city. So we got a little time. So I this time personally, I say I'll stay back and do the interview. So thanks, Austin, for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad to be here, man.
For people who just don't know who you are, give people a brief introduction who you are.
Well, I played Jason, the original Red Ranger in Mighty Morphing Power Rangers. I was the Gold Ranger in Zeo. I came back in Forever Red and Wild Force. I came back in Beast Morphers as the Red Ranger. I've come back a few times in between. I've been around. So I've done other films, probably 4 or 5 other films. I did the other Rangers, Power Rangers Zeo, or not Zeo. Gosh, so many projects I've done. I've done like 150 episodes of television and quite a few films. So keeping them all off the top of my hat takes a little practice. But I've been all over the place, man. If you guys, if you hit up my website, austinstjohn.biz, then I've got a projects page there, and you can look through all kinds of stuff.
Okay, cool. I don't know where you're from. I know you're a little bit older than I am, but back in the day, did you chill on the did y'all have the green electrical boxes in front of the neighborhoods as a kid?
Oh yeah.
So this show is basically that, we chill on the electrical box, as I call it, the green box, and we just chill and break down things because I've been on several podcasts and basically a creator comes on there and just talk about their project for 2 hours straight, and nobody has a reason why to support them and who they are. So I did this so people can just find out more about the creator and find a reason why to support them. So this show is broken up in several different segments, and my first segment is called Breaking It Down, because on that green box, you break things down like ideas and concepts, so we can break your brain down so people know more about you.
Okay.
My first question, what is your favorite part of your daily routine that you look forward to every day?
Man, my favorite personal part, not as a husband, not as a father. I like getting up usually right around 5 a.m. before the world is up, and I get to sit down. I go through. I grab my cup of coffee. I do a little meditation, probably 20, 30 minutes, and sometimes more. And I just kind of get my mind right for the day. And sometimes I'll get up as early as 4 o'clock and I'll do that. Once I finish that up, I grab my coffee, I sit down in front of my computer, and I map out my priorities for the day, my business plan, my plan of attack. What is it I'm going to accomplish? I use an app called Monday. And I look through my apps and I prioritize from highest to lowest. And I'm usually well into the process by the latest 5 a.m. each morning at my computer, maybe 5:15 if it was a quick session. And I like that because it's quiet. The world is quiet. The big light in the sky isn't on yet. And I know that getting up between 4 and 5 and getting this process started puts me ahead of everybody else out there who's too tired to get out of bed, who's too lazy to get out of bed, it's too cold, I want to stay under the sheets, or who's making all the excuses in the world why they can't get up and do what they need to do to get their business, their mind right, their process going. And that's my time to get in gear and get ahead. And I love doing it.
That's dope, man. I'm trying to do that myself, but my job keeps shifting my schedule. I'm about to be overnights now, so. But I seen Mark Wahlberg. He was the first person that really put me on game about that. He's got like a little routine he does. He wake up super early and read and work out. Then after that, he does his business meetings. Then after that, he's done to be with his family and stuff like that. And I'm like, man, that's dope, because exactly what you said. People don't want to get up, and it's all that free time. So I've been trying to do that, especially with these interviews. I've been trying to have my interviews out in the morning time. But a lot of my guests, they want to do it at 7, 8 p.m. at night. And I'm like, man, that's like really family time. But I guess people's mindsets are different.
Yeah, and it's, and then depending on your guests, like in your situation, you're going to have them in different time zones. And now this is the part of your work. What you're confusing here is your work. This is where your work is dependent upon other people, because this is what you do. You get into their minds, you break it down, you find things that are in common, and you share that with your crowd. And that's a tough spot to be in. Mm-hmm. So finding the time, what Mark and I are talking about is finding that me time to get ahead and get your mind right and organize these things. And then, when the job comes, the job comes. I guarantee you, Mark's worked late nights and missed some family dinners. And God knows I have. I've missed some birthdays. I've missed some Christmases. I lived in the Middle East for 4 years, Mm-hmm. So it's, there's definitely sacrifices to be had, but discipline is doing what you hate like you love it, because other people aren't going to do that. They're going to be sitting by that phone waiting for somebody to call them with the grand gift, waiting for somebody to give them what they want or what they need. And, it looks like you're motivated, you're organized, you're set up here. And I think that's great, because for me to come in as a professional, when I walk in and somebody's like, oh man, I got this problem, give me a minute. Oh man, I got this problem, give me a minute. Those are all problems you should have set your time aside and organized that. But here you are, you show up and you're ready to go. And that's great. So now I'm glad to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, thank you. I try. My next question. What is the most stressful show or movie you have
watched?
Yeah.
So we're talking like hit me in the feel goods?
Stressful.
Stressful.
Like, oh my God, like, don't turn there, or, oh my God, I can't believe he just lost that job. Like, stuff like that.
When I was 11 or 12, still young enough that I knew there wasn't a boogeyman in the dark, but I still didn't like the dark. You know what I mean? I stayed up late, didn't listen to mom and dad, and I'm watching TV, and on came the movie The Exorcist.
Uh-oh.
That movie had me messed up for months. Because even by 11 or 12, I'd been fighting. I'd been in the martial arts. I was confident physically. I was in incredible shape. Like at 12, I was good to roll with people twice my size. But the second I figured out there were these things out there I couldn't punch or kick, there was this evil in the world. I didn't go to Taekwondo or Kenpo and learn how to defeat that. That's what I went to church for. And I was spending a lot more time in the martial arts than I was at church. And so it left me in this place like, oh my gosh, what do I do if something like this comes after me? And so for a long time, even at 11 or 12, I was sleeping with the light on. I was checking, the temperature in the room, was it getting cold? Was there something coming to get me? And then ultimately what I started doing is I started going to church more, and I started making myself more current with the word of the man upstairs. And I realized that was like having a good guard or a good punch, that was the other version. So it creeped me out, man. Another movie that got me was Hacksaw Ridge. Do you see that?
I heard about that, but I've never seen that one.
Okay. So Hacksaw Ridge is about this country boy who, he's not your macho man. He's not your alpha male. And, big muscle, I'm going to go to war, give me a rifle, I'm going to, I want to be the next Rambo or whatever it is, or the next Equalizer, Denzel getting his game on. He was just like corn-fed, country boy, polite, like this big around, tiny little dude, right? And he had his moral compass set, and he's like, I am not going to pick up a rifle. I'm not going to kill people. That's not why God put me here. So he joins in World War II because he wants to do his duty, but he refuses to carry a rifle, and they try to wash him out. The army gives him, they try to give him hell about it. And finally he wins against the army, and they let him graduate. He graduates, and then he goes to war, World War II. And they're like, what are you going to do over here? He wants to be a medic. He's like, my job is to save lives. I can do that. I don't need a rifle to do that. And everybody's, giving him grief in the beginning. Well, then he gets over there, and this is a true story. It's based on a true story.
Yeah, I heard a true story before, yeah.
Yeah, dude never picked up a rifle, and he saved like 93 lives. And guy's a legend.
That's the one that he told him they saved, but I believe he saved a whole lot more.
Yeah, probably a whole lot more. and he never picked up that rifle. And it was that's just a testament to what it takes to get through tough times and to stick to your ethics, your social graces, your morals, and what your mom and dad taught you, or what you learned from the man upstairs, whoever you worship. You find that moral compass and you stick to it, because nobody else out there is going to care if you step away from it. You got to be the one that cares.
Cool. All right, man. That was good. Typically I have more, but we're gonna move on to my next segment.
Shoot.
It's called the back issues. Being in comic books, you should know all about the back issues. For people who don't know, if you want to know about a character's origin story, you go into their back issues to find out about the origin story. So if you want to find out more about, Dick Grayson, you go to his back issues to find out about his origin story. So now we can go into your back issues to find out about your origin story. So, where are you from, and what do you call your hood?
So I was born in Roswell, New Mexico, which makes me an alien baby. That's where all the crazy alien stuff happened. It was, not a big town. We had a military, New Mexico Military Institute was the biggest thing in the town. And, there were parts of town that were okay. There were parts of town that, had lots of drugs going on back in the 70s. It was, like any town, had its good parts, there's not so good parts. And it was everybody pretty much knew everybody, and it's still a pretty small town. But it made the newspapers because all the alien stuff in the 1950s and 60s, and there are bases down there that everybody thinks they keep ET on, and there's all kinds of cool stories that are blowing up all around that area that people are still a part of. So it's kind of cool. There's a lot of, if you just Google Roswell and aliens, you will find a lot of information to check out.
Okay. Did you have any encounters when you was there?
No, nothing personal. I mean, I got to watch what was the ET? I watched ET. That's about the closest encounter I personally had.
Okay. Music. Do you listen to music?
I love music. I listen to everything.
What artist or song got you loving music or liking that genre?
First, I mean, I like all genres. I grew up, my dad was big band jazz, the Glenn Miller band. He was all into classical music. My mom, there was a period where my dad played like 1950s and 60s music. My mom played that too. So I grew up listening to the Shirelles, the Jackson 5. I grew up listening to a band, and I mean, it was old then, but I still got to listen to it because my parents knew of it. And then probably my teen years, like in the 90s when Power Rangers was blowing up, Mark Wahlberg was Marky Mark, Tupac was all over the radio. Biggie was all over the radio. I listened to both of them, and, and all the craziness that went on between East Coast, West Coast vibe. And then so for a long time, it was hip hop R&B with my boy Walter, who played Zach the Black Ranger. And then I picked up, I got into country, and then I got into mainstream. And now it depends on my mood. I'll listen to all of it. So it just depends on where I am. But music for me is all about the vibe. It's like watching a movie. What kind of trip do I want to take? Oh, I want something happy. I'm going to throw on some Disney. Oh, I want something dramatic. I'm going to watch Scarface. Music is no different for me. It's am I working out? Am I in a serious place? Am I in a quiet place? Am I in a spiritual place? And I got to find something that fits that bill, and then I turn it on.
Okay, cool. That makes sense. I'm a DJ and whatever, so I encounter a lot of music, and just being grown, I see that feeling of music, how it treats you. I listen to a lot of rap and stuff, but I starting to notice what kind of rap I'm listening to and how it makes me react. Yeah. So now I'm listening to more of the older songs, the 90s stuff, the R&B stuff, because back then when I listened to it, everything was good. So I'm going back there and I'm starting to have the same feelings. And more of the island music and the African Afrobeat stuff like that. It somehow makes it feel good, even though it might be talking about the same stuff, but it just more a feel good type of music, I guess.
Yeah, man. Everybody's got their vibe and their emotion, and they got what they're going through in their life, and then you find the music that that gets you there or gets you away from there. You know, whatever your goal is when you throw it on. Or sometimes you just want to turn something on and tune out. You know what I mean? You just want to step away and find an artist that have a music that carry that message and give you that feel is incredible. And being able to, I mean, I lived in the Middle East for 4 years. I've lived in Asia. I've been all around the world. So I can take a mind trip in a million different directions, depending on what I want to put on from where it is in the world. And it's really cool. So I always encourage people, you may have grown up listening to one thing or two things or a genre or a vibe, but I guarantee you there's a lot more out there that you might like. You just got to be willing to give it a try.
Yep. All right. My next question, comic books. What comic book or comic related TV show that got you to comics?
So I never read comics. I had buddies that had comics. I really didn't know a lot about them other than maybe it was Spider-Man. For me, I was like, oh, that comic book's cool, but I'm going to go turn on morning cartoons and watch my Spider-Man there, or my G.I. Joe or Voltron or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or all that, He-Man, and I only watched He-Man because I was all about She-Ra, So, I think it was enough that it was there that that's what brought me back 30 years later when I decided to create my own comic book after talking with the fans. I created Redemption Comics because I knew I wanted to create an animated series that was about what happened to Jason at the end of the world. What happens to Jason 30 years after he hangs up the red suit at the end of the world? What does he become? And it's about his transition from the Ranger to the Reaper in this dark post-apocalyptic dystopian world. And I've learned a lot about comics since then, let me tell you. And one of the ones, I think it's called Exiled, Wesley Snipes put out.
Yeah.
His did well. So I've researched a lot of successful comic book makers, and I'm still learning a lot. Now I'm talking with animators, and I'm talking. This is the thing, man. I don't care how smart you are, whatever it is you do. If you're not surrounding yourself with people that are smarter than you, you're not learning the way you could, and you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're going to hire the wrong guy or trust the wrong guy, but that's business. Get over it, move on. You know what I mean? You got to learn. It doesn't matter what president you voted for. They all have a cabinet around them of people whose job it is to know all the things these presidents can't know all of, and that's why they have their advisors. So whether you're doing a comic, whether you're doing music, whether you're a married man, find a married man who is someone you can look up to and ask him, how does he screw up and survive it? What does he do right? You know what I mean? And it's just. I could go on and on, but that's kind of how I got into the comic world. I knew the fans wanted it. I started surrounding myself with people that knew a lot more about it, and I'm still learning, and I love it. It's a lot of work, but it's also a lot of fun.
Cool. All right, I'm gonna go to my next segment, which is called the hotkeys. Being in comic books, hotkeys are key issues where that be worth a lot of money, where a new artist, new writer, a new character get introduced, or nowadays a storyline get picked up as a TV show or movie. As well in music, it's a DJ or a producer have, and they can press to turn up the song, get certain sounds, and get people live during an event. Well, this segment is questions that I formulated, so people can take something from the interview so they know more about you and what you do outside, your Power Ranger stuff.
Sure.
So, with that being said, you touched on it briefly, but I just want to go more in depth. What made you be a writer?
Well, I'm not per se a writer. I went out and I found guys who were skilled at writing and were interested in my storyline. I shared with them the pitch, the ideas, what it was I wanted to do, and they found inspiration in it, and then I gave them guidance and direction, and then I let writers do what they do. They started writing it. In the process, I've learned a lot more about it. I am a published author, but my writing was based on martial arts and my experience in martial arts. So this is my first go around as a creative. I'm a creator. So on my creative team, I have my writers and my artists, and my editors, and people who pull it all together and make it seamless. So what made me decide to do it? I wanted to create something that I could. I wanted to get what was in my mind onto paper. And that's a really hard part. That's why people go to school. Teachers are like, okay, you learned all this. Great. Now write it down. People are like, it's not that easy to get it from here to here or into here. Like, that's not easy. You could be a singer, but how do you get the lyrics onto the paper and then out your mouth with feeling? You know what I mean? And it's no different with creating and finding inspiration in places that allow you or inspire you to put the fear of failure aside, because you're going to fail. You're going to make mistakes. Nobody gets to the top of the mountain without screwing up a whole lot. Higher up the mountain you get, the more mistakes you've made. And really the only thing you should be afraid of is not trying. So I think that's my approach to the creative process is, yeah, I'm going to screw up. I'm going to learn some things, and I'm going to have some successes. And I'm going to do this with a team of people that I can trust, and I'm going to create something cool. So I think really my mindset is I'm not per se a writer, but I am a creator. And I'm going to pull together people with talents I don't have, and we're all going to learn from each other in a fashion that allows us to create something that maybe provides other people inspiration. And that's my goal.
Cool. I think you're the first guest I have that wasn't a writer per se. So they probably did a little bit writing, but they had a co-writer, to help fill the gaps in. But you're, I guess, more of an executive producer. Yeah. And so how hard was it for you to find a writer?
It was a process. It took me years. And really, it's a process of conversations, because when you're in the early stages, if you're not talking about what it is you're going to do, and there's a way to talk about it. You get together with people and they're talking about, oh yeah, I want to try this. This is something I want to do. Words have power. When you get together and you're going to talk with people, you're not going to inspire anybody with, yeah, this is something I want. Everybody wants to do something. Everybody's trying to do something. If you're going to do something, then when I get together with somebody, I'm like, this is what I'm doing. This is who I'm looking for. This is what I'm after. And these are the things I'm going to accomplish. And that's when you get with other people. And so I spent years, I was like, hey, I'm looking for writers. I'm looking for writers who are great in post-apocalyptic and dystopian mindsets. People who feel like they would fit in the genre of Lord of the Rings meets Mad Max. You know what I mean? Like I am currently looking for writers who do that. And it took a while. And I met many. And some just weren't the right fit. The energy wasn't right. The vibe wasn't right. Whatever it was, probably all great writers, but it just wasn't right for me and my creative process. And then I found the guy that was, and he got me started. We talked. He taught me so much. He was with Charter Comics. His name was Chris Hayes, and there was another guy, McLean McGuire. And they really brought me in and opened my eyes to the world and the process of writing. And that was kind of how it got started, but it took years. And it's just approach. You tell people you're looking for stuff and you want to try stuff. Well, they're like, yeah, I want to try on shoes, and I want to try. Maybe I haven't had Indian food. I want to try that too. Everybody's got I wanna. Really, what they want to know in the world of business is, what are you doing?
Okay. So I haven't read your book yet. But you said your book was based off of Jason? I thought it was just a character that's kind of like yourself and him.
So it's a crossover. There's lots of parallels.
Okay.
The premise, because I'm not Hasbro, I don't own Power Rangers, so I can't use the name in any way, shape, or form. The idea was, how do I take my fans who love Jason, who have grown up, or in their 20s to early 20s to 40s, most of my fan base. How do I design something for them? And yes, they love the show, but now they've grown up and they've matured. What can I make for them now that excites them, that they would love? And so I started talking to the fans, because I'm not afraid to do that. And I started hearing a lot about, man, we love, I learned about anime, and I learned about a lot of these darker shows. And I thought, you know what? What if I took Jason, because Jason is a name. Nobody owns the name Jason. And I talk about the fact that he hung up the red suit, This is 30 years later. And then I create a whole nother world, like Lord of the Rings meets Mad Max, with some Pacific Rim element type things that will come in later, with ancient bloodlines and reincarnation and demons and druids and cannibals and scavengers, and no zombies and no more viruses, because I'm zombied and virused out, right? What if I created this world where someone who used to be a hero kind of walked away and now has to return and is forced back into a hero type role, but in a whole new way? So what the Ranger becomes the Reaper. And we see a dark side to what Jason becomes in the future that you would never see in Power Rangers. Okay. And there are Easter eggs in there. If you're a Rangers fan and you know what to look for, you'll see a couple of things and be like, oh, damn, I see what he did there. I see what that was. Oh, look at that sign. Okay. In book 1, I brought back a beautiful Asian girl in yellow. And that's representative of my co-star who, rest in peace, is no longer with us. From the original 5, she was gone when I wrote that book. So that was my goal, to bring her back and make her a part of this ongoing series. And we're going to find, because it takes place in current day, that we're going to find that in modern humanity, everybody thinks druids and demons and elves are ancient, all that are fantasy. And what we're going to find is that they're not really. These bloodlines are going to rise to the surface over time. As this new evil comes to town, they're going to have reason to rise again. So I could go on and on, but I know you got other questions.
Yeah. So now you're a creator, you got your own book. How is it going to Comic Cons as a creator with your own book now versus going as a Ranger?
It's pretty interesting because I've created a lot of things. I have my comic book. I am one of the founding members of a company called Fanward, FANWARD.com, where I have Walter Jones. He's joined the company. We have Jeremy Sumpter, who was Peter Pan. We're bringing on other actors by the end of the year and early next year, a lot of other actors. So I've helped to spend 5 years creating that, helping to create that. And then I've got St. John Enterprises, which is my online website. So I've been a creator for a long time. And I think being a creator versus just being an actor, if I'm just an actor, then, a creator comes to me. He hires a producer, he hires an executive producer, he hires a production team, then he hires actors, and then he gives me directions. This is what I think you should do. I hired you because you look the part, and I like how you present yourself. So this is what I want to use you for in this character that some other creators created. As a creator myself now, I can make all that on my own. I don't have to wait for somebody to bring me the script. You created this show. Rather than just being one of the talking heads on it, now you're the guy who's sitting in the seat. You formulate the questions. You're the man with the plan. This is your creation. Now, I would say put that question to yourself. How would it feel if somebody else created all this and then you had to just sit here and ask somebody else's questions?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you're already feeling it. You're already the creator. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. The new Ninja Turtle movie just came out. I heard you mention that earlier. One thing extremely different between that movie and the rest of all the franchise is the voice actors are actually children. So with Power Rangers, when you started, y'all supposed to be teenagers. But how'd you feel if Power Rangers were really teenagers? You wouldn't think the show were jump back in popularity back when you started, or you think it's this different time? Because people love the Turtles movie to the kids, so I assume,
Yeah, I mean,
14, 15-year-olds as Power Rangers, like Cobra Kai.
Yeah. Well, I was a teenager when I started on the show. I signed at 17. I started filming at 18. I wasn't 14 or 15, but I was the youngest.
Yeah.
I think that's part of what made it cool. It was the only live action show in the world. And number two, it was the only one that showed teenagers going through their day-to-day life, like in high school. Oh, I got to go to school. I mean, it blows my mind that they never figured out that, oh, look, Jason wears red to school every day. And then every time a bad guy comes to town, Jason and Kimberly, who all wear the same color every day, suddenly go missing during school. And then the Power Rangers show up downtown, they clean up, and then they come back to school. And you know what's weird is they never show us graduating high school. I wonder if we actually did. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, how long y'all was in high school for,
Yeah, exactly. I think after a year of that, we probably would have been expelled, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think the teenagers thing is kind of one of those things that makes it cool. It allows everybody to identify in their own way. And right from the get-go, we had people of so many different looks and ethnicities and backgrounds, so that no matter where you were in the world, there was somebody you could look at and be like, man, that looks like, my mom or my dad, or I could be that guy or that girl. And there was someone everyone could identify with that made them feel like they could be a ranger. You know what I mean? And I think that's part of what made it so cool. It made them want to be a ranger. So I think that's cool. And I think it's a formula nobody's been able to repeat and make successful sense. A lot have tried. Nobody succeeded.
Okay. Being the original, you got a lot of press, but I guess as you went on, probably the Gold Ranger, maybe Turbo, I'm not quite sure, but the press died down. But TJ, I don't know his real name, but TJ, the Red Ranger from Turbo,
Yeah.
he said in a recent interview, he said he thought being the first Black Red Ranger would have been a big deal, and like he would be in all these magazines and stuff like that. But it wasn't that much press behind it, and I assume you felt the same way. We the first, this, that, and third, but it wasn't that much press. Why do you feel it wasn't that much press back then, but now as y'all, so much older, is a lot of press, toys coming back out, so much stuff now? Why do you think is a difference?
I think there's, number one, I think a lot of stuff, like in the 90s, you didn't really, Facebook wasn't out there, Instagram wasn't out there. I mean, you look at, I'm trying to think of, let's use The Rock. The Rock, he's got like 100 million followers, right? He got big in the modern era with all sorts of social media. I think back in the 90s, people were still using old school mail-ins, to be part of fan clubs. And there wasn't really a way to connect with whoever it was you were a fan with, unless you sent in a letter, or maybe you got lucky and got a letter, or you saw them at concerts, snuck backstage, or, you got lucky somewhere and saw them out in town. There weren't Comic-Cons. They didn't have Instagram or personal Cameo channels and stuff like that. So I think several things have happened. Number one, the boom of technology has allowed us to access people in different ways. And information travels so much faster. And I think that with the boom of technology, people now have so many different methods or ways with which, you could reach out to The Rock or Vin Diesel or Mariah Carey or whoever your jam is, and have that conversation. I think it's a bigger deal today, a lot, really just because it's more accessible. And I think topics change, political topics change. I think what's important, in the 90s, we just come out of the Cold War, so people were enjoying not being angry about Russia. And in the 90s, pop and R&B and things were getting big. And now we got the 2000s, and there's other political topics that have become big that people want to discuss. And, Walter talks about being the first Black superhero.
Yeah.
And that should have hit hard. I was actually acquainted and friends with Nichelle Nichols, who played Uhura on Star Trek. And she had the first interracial kiss on TV. And that girl, she was a legend. And she was incredible to be around every time. And they didn't really get all the press back then. And her day, that was the 60s. And she didn't really start getting press about what she accomplished until 20 years ago, 25 years ago. And then It didn't really get big until even a few years ago. And so I can't really express rhyme or reason as to how things are bigger now, other than I think technology and politics and people's views and things are changing. And people are just willing to receive messages different now maybe than they were back in that day. So it's interesting for sure.
Okay. So one thing I wasn't aware of, that you actually did martial arts younger. You know, I'm Power Ranger fan, of course, you know. But I always hear about, Jason, he's the martial artist and he teaching some of the cast certain things to make better. But it's really, I really haven't heard stories about your martial arts prior to the show. But that being said, how true to you are you to your character? Was you like diehard martial artist like he was, or how are you?
So you said Jason earlier. Were you talking about Tommy?
Well, first
Jason
Jason, I was
Frank?
talking about Jason David Frank. He being a
Okay.
martial artist and helping the show. But the
Sure.
second Jason is talking about your character.
Um, well, I've been in the martial arts since I was about, I mean, gosh, since I was a little, and I've been around the arts a long time. And I mean, I can remember teaching David Yost martial arts. I can remember working with Amy Jo. I can remember working with the original cast. I can remember teaching all over the show
Okay.
to a lot of the crew, and I did that from day one. In fact, they put me in. They tested me in the fifth audition, that fifth or sixth audition. They put me in against the guy. He was an eighth dan in Wataru, and they put me in against him. His name was Yamashita Tadashi. He was the fight choreographer of the '90s. You know that name? He's no joke.
Yeah, very familiar. Yeah, I heard. Yeah.
He is no joke. And I mean, he did all the fight choreography for Blade. He did the fight choreography for all the Sean Connery movies back in the day. And they put me in the ring. The highest rank I held at the time was a second degree. And they put me in against him. The director was like, "Hey, Yamashita, do me a favor, spar with this guy. Let me know if he's got what it takes." And I never sparred with anybody of that rank at that time. I thought I was going to die. And I got in and we fought, and the whole gym stopped. Everybody stopped, and we cleaned house. Like he was an animal. He was very accomplished. And anyway, so yeah, I've been through my trials. I just don't run my mouth about it.
Okay.
So I'm old school. There are a lot of guys in the martial arts nowadays who run their mouths talking about other people, talking about how great they are. All you got to do is ask them, and they'll tell you how great they are. That's never been my style.
Now, was all six of y'all martial artists or no?
So the original cast was 5.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so that was Audrey Dubois, who is the first Yellow Ranger. The second cast is where they brought in Thuy Trang. She was the 6th Ranger. She was not a martial artist, but Audrey, her predecessor in the unaired pilot, she was a martial artist. Walter, I think he had a black belt in I'm not sure what he blacked in. He could tell you, but he had experience. And then Amy Jo was not a martial artist. She was a gymnast. David was not a martial artist. He was a gymnast. And that covers the first 2 original casts. When the 7th Ranger came in, which was Jason Frank, he came in somewhere towards the middle of first season or earlier first season, maybe around episode 20, 15, maybe 25, somewhere in that neighborhood. He was a martial artist. Johnny Young Bosch was a martial artist. And Steve Cardenas was a martial artist. Those are the guys that I know personally that I worked with that had some skin in the game, aside from the stunt guys who, man, when I tell you the number of martial artists we had on set, it was wild. It didn't matter what you wanted to study or train with. There was somebody on set that had experience. So if you ran your mouth on set, you got figured out real quick. There were too many alpha males with martial arts skills not to. Somebody's going to challenge you.
Okay. All right. Bringing up Johnny Young Bosch, I grew up with y'all, and it seemed like his popularity came, in my eyes, through the voice acting.
Yeah.
But now he's, one of the stand-up. He's the first. I think. Let me make sure. I think he was the first one of y'all that came back. I think he came back in space. Because you only came back in the movie Turbo.
No, I came back in Zeo.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. I keep thinking that's the same. Well, more of a different cast, if I choose my words correctly.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I know he's been back a few times.
Yeah, but now you've been back a couple times. It being in Gold Ranger and Forever Red. But did you come back another time?
Yeah, I came back in Beast Morphers.
Well, I was going to Beast Morphers. I thought it was the time before that. Did you or no?
They asked me several times. In fact, they've asked me a lot.
Yeah.
They asked me for Super Mega Force or whatever that was.
Yeah.
And that episode that hit big, but at the time I was in the Middle East for the war, and I couldn't. So they asked me for Once and Always. They asked Jason Frank for Once and Always.
Yeah.
They asked Amy Jo for Once and Always. We all turned them down.
Now, how was it with Beast Morphers? Because you had a couple episodes in that, correct?
Yeah, well, it was a 2-part episode. I don't think I actually showed up till part 2.
Oh, okay.
They kind of led up to it. But it was pretty interesting, man. I kind of felt like the Godfather, you know. Walking on the set, I'm around all these young guys who remind me of you know, the original 5. We were all teens, and when we started that show and the show catapulted to #1, you know, it was the 5 of us that were having to figure out how to deal with TV and how to deal with, you know, the producers and the craziness and the insanity together. And so I walk on and I see these guys who are teenagers, you know, young 20s, and nothing changed. They're still trying to figure it out. You know, what do we do? How do we talk? How do we negotiate? And so it was a lot of memory lane walking back. It was pretty cool. And it was great working with them. They're all talented guys and girls.
That's great. I haven't got to it yet, but definitely you coming back definitely, you know, triggered my interest in the shows, because, you know, I fell off. I think they say the Disney era or something like that. I think like Ultra Drive. I think that's like what I stopped at, and you know, every time something happened, you know, I tune in or catch episodes, you know, when the new old Rangers come back.
Yeah.
But definitely, they definitely market you a lot for that series. All right. Just to touch up some last couple questions. Now I read some of your bio, and it said you did a tour, right? So was that military work or just how you did your EMT work?
Well, I mean, I spent 12 years as a medic in the fire department in the Northern Virginia area, D.C. area. Mm-hmm. So I started out as a volunteer. I did 4 years, and then I fell in love with it. I got paid. I rose through the ranks, got better educated, and then I started teaching. And then I spent 4 years in the Middle East as a medic attached to military operations through contract, and I did some other contract work, DOD. So I mean, that may be what they're talking about. As far as my tours overseas, I did 4 years.
Okay.
But I was never in the military, so people get that confused all the time.
Yeah, I guess I want to say poor war choice. I guess it was a correct war choice, but you know.
Well, that's okay. People, you know, if you don't know, you don't know, right?
Yeah. I guess I'll give you 2 more questions. You said you best buddies with Walter, correct? What made y'all friendship stick past the TV show?
Man, he was. God, I mean, he's not gonna like this part, but he was wiser. I won't say older. I'll say he was wiser than I was by quite a few years, and he just, in a lot of ways, he was like a mentor to me in the world of acting. I didn't know anything about acting. I mean, nothing. And most of my first lessons came from that guy. And then, you know, and then on top of it, once the series landed, I found out they had a house in Glendale with a bunch of guys in it. I was like, do you have another room so I don't have to drive from where I live all the way up to the show? Because it was a long haul. He's like, yeah, man. So they had this room. I moved into an extra room. And so we were roomies for years. And we had, it was Walter, myself, we had Paul in there. We had Danny. We had quite a few guys that were in that house. Some of them were stunt guys from the show. So it became like, you know, brotherhood. We did dumb stuff together. We had parties together. We worked our butts off together. We learned together. And it was just a really cool process. So he and I were there in the beginning, and he kind of took me in. I've always considered it. He took me in under his wing, and I'll always love him to death for it. You know what I mean? He's He's my bro.
Okay. Um. Boom Comics. 2 questions regarding them. How do you feel about their treatment of your character in Boom?
So I know Ryan, and well, I know both the writers for both Shattered Grid and Go-Go. Go-Go, I thought was, I mean, I haven't read the entire series, either of them. I thought it was, what little I do know, usually the fans would come to me like when a big moment had happened, to be like, "Yo, check this out! This, look at you! You're wearing the Yellow Ranger suit, and Trini's wearing a Red Ranger suit." I was like, "What?" And they started sending me pictures, and we're kissing, wearing the opposite suits. I was like, I didn't see that coming. I don't know what happened. In the middle of the night, we got up for an emergency, put on the wrong suit. But, it was, I love that because for me, people talk all the time about, Tommy Kimberly, Jason Kimberly, like there was competition and there was never competition. Jason didn't want anything to do with Kimberly ever. She's an amazing character. I love the character, but Jason isn't about high maintenance. He's more about peace, tranquility, and strength. And that's what Trini represents in that character. And so I think them finding that bond between Jason and Trini, that's the direction I would have took it myself. And I can remember talking years ago with some of them, like, I love where you're going with that. I think that's great. And then it came out, and I was stunned that they actually did it. Shattered Grid, I read pieces about. Mostly I heard anything that I heard about it through the fans, and that's kind of what turned me into realizing that the fans really do like the darker stuff. They are ready for the darker story. And that was something that I was told that Jason Frank came up with that concept and gave it or introduced it to Saban and those guys, and they took it and ran with it. And I'm sure they never paid Jason for it because that's how they are. But I think they're interesting concepts, and I love that they're now experimenting with parallel universes and different storylines because we see that in Marvel and DC. So why not in Power Rangers?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right. That's it for that segment. My last segment is called Digging the Crates. When in comics, you dig in the crates, find out old Spider-Mans or Batman issues in there. And music, you find them old vinyl CDs, the classics, So I can dig through this interview and pick out a question that, people can leave off with something. And you said, you probably didn't say it, but being a hero, other being a ranger and, actually being a real firefighter and that stuff and being a real hero. If you were able to develop a movie not based off your comic book or portray a character, what other type of hero would you try to portray or write about?
Man, I think I always like the characters that come from a place from humble beginnings. You know what I mean? I like the characters. I kind of like anti-heroes. Because they can have that dark past somewhere, that story that they're not proud of or that they don't want to talk about, but it's an integral part of what drove them to save that lady or this person or the world, whatever it is. And I think that would probably be the direction I would go. I like war heroes. I like stuff like that too. And I think really, if you look at the difference between a villain and a hero, the line of difference is like this wide, because they both have something that's horrible that's happened to them that made them decide. Superman, his whole planet blew up, lost his family, lands on the planet and decides to be a good guy, right? But the villain has got a very similar story. Superman could have had the whole planet blow up, land on Earth, and then somebody beat him up and he got a scar. And then, because you see that on a lot of villains, they got a scar. So they wear their pain on their face. And then they get angry and they blame it on the world instead of trying to save it. So I would want to build a hero that was constantly trying to figure out how to walk that line. He wants to save the world. He wants to do good, but he's angry. He's mad. A lot of people didn't do right by him. and he knows that he wants to do right by others, but he's struggling with that inner turmoil. I don't whether he grew up in the sticks, or whether it was inner city, or in a third world country, or some sort of hardship that brings him up and makes him one of the reasons that Indiana Jones is such a popular character, is because he's not super big and buff. He doesn't look like a hero. He looks like an everyday dude, right? People look at him and they're like, oh, what's he going to do? And then he does some crazy stuff. So I think I would like him to be an ordinary kind of guy that came from some sort of hell and has to fight every day with, is he going to go back to hell, or is he going to continue to save the world? You know what I mean? Every day waking up some days is going to be a struggle for this guy. And sometimes he's going to slip. And I think that would be the sort of hero that no matter which movie you came to see, Hero 1 or Hero 15, the movie, you never know what you're going to get, because you don't know how he's going to wake up and feel about it. You know what I mean?
Yep. That's good, man. I'll watch it.
Yep. All right.
Well, that's the end of my show. For people who's enjoyed this show, where can they purchase your book and follow you at?
Okay, so hit me up at, well, I tell you what, just go to Austin, STJOHN.BIZ, AustinSt.John.biz, and you'll find my social media links, you'll find projects, you'll find my store, you'll find my comic book, you'll find it all there.
All right, cool, man. And once again, thanks for coming on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. God bless. Have a good one, bro.
All right, y'all. That's it. Shout out to Austin St. John. Great dude. Appreciate you coming on the show for our season finale of Chillin Green Box.
All right, bro. Just got finished.
He showed up, y'all. He showed up for the last
outro, man. Last outro of the season. It was dope. Hope y'all enjoyed it. It was great. We had great guests, great information. And this is the last time we're going to be at this Green Box. So make sure y'all tune in next season.
So we could be doing our thing. I'm upgrading, changing format, doing things better, having some more, more profile guests. And we're just doing the thing, man. Yeah, I hope y'all enjoyed it. I hope y'all will rewatch everything. Share, like, subscribe, We probably have merch coming soon. And once again, this is our last episode of the season. We had to do it with a bang. We had to bring in the OG, Red Ranger, Austin St. John. We had to do it.
Yeah, and I'm proud to be on more shows next season. Had a lot of stuff going on this season. But new roles, new opportunities coming up. Y'all make sure y'all tune in.
And yeah, make sure you go to his August St. John's page, check out his stuff, get his books, and check out some of his films he been in, everything besides, the Power Rangers. And, if you want to follow me, hit me up at Specks 706, on all social media.
And make sure y'all tell y'all people to watch the show, rewatch the episodes. Great information. They can learn something if they any kind of artist, any kind of professional, or just a straight up nerd. At Legacy of You on all social media, or hit me up and read my books at legacyofyou.com.
And if you want to be on the show next season, we taking people starting probably in spring, probably in March or whatever. So hit us up at Chillin Greenbox, or hit us up at chillingreenbox@gmail.com. We enjoyed y'all, everything, and hey, we out. See you next season.